Well, just testing COVID.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. The Transport Online Innovation Summit, brought to you this time by Instant System. I'm Luke, the editor of Intelligent Transport, and I will be your moderator for the next 30 minutes or so. In this session, we're lucky enough to hear from Jan Hervé, CEO and co-founder at Instant System, and Alexander Pierini, international business developer at Instant System also, as they take us through their work with STIB in Brussels to launch the new mass system MOVEBRUSSELS. For the audience, do make sure to send your questions in during the presentation so we can get them answered towards the end. But for now, over to you guys to kick us off. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. So we're Instant System. And today, well, first of all, we're respecting social distancing, as you can see. So today we'll talk through the MOVEBRUSSELS app that we're co-creating with the STIB-MIVB in Brussels. And as you may know from the news, was launched last week by the STIB-MIVB. So I'll just share my screen. Okay, so we'll start with a short presentation of our company, just a 1-minute presentation for you to know who we are and what we do. Then we'll talk about the context of this project with the STIB-MIVB. We'll tell you why we think it will work, because it will work. And then Jan will talk through the challenges that we faced during the project and we still face for some at the moment. So first thing first, what we do at Instant System is providing tailor-made white label mass solutions for public transport authorities and public transport operators. We were created in 2013 around the development of our multimodal journey planner. I would even say intermodal journey planner before an evolution towards mass. We launched our first big app in 2016 with Via Navigo for Île-de-France Mobilité, which is the public authority in charge of the transportation for the whole Paris region. In the same time as Zaleo, which was the first mass experiment in France in 2016. Then we started working with other regions in France. In 2019, we launched the mass experiment called MAX for the RATP in Paris. And in 2020, we launched MOVEBRUSSELS with the STIB-MIVB. And well, this is what we have to talk about today. We currently have a bit more than 60 customers, which means for us having a bit more than 60 apps live. As we're doing tailor-made solution, every customer has its own app. So about the context of this project. So the final goal of this project is to deploy a mass application in Brussels City and Brussels region, which is a bit more than 1.2 million citizens. The goal is, of course, to integrate and include every mobility service provider, which is in the region. And this comes through the integration of new ticketing solutions, as we'll tell you later on. And of course, adding book and pay solution for every kind of MSP that are currently in the region and will be there later. About the steps of the project. It was launched in January this year. Until August, we developed and deployed the closed pilot. We started a week ago, as you may have seen it, the live. We had the go live for 2,000 users to just use the app and give us their feedback on it. We'll still improve the app until December. And in 2021, we'll run the final version of the closed pilot live, and we'll extend the number of users, maybe to 8,000 or 10,000 users to have more feedback about it. And then in 2022, the app will be launched for everyone to use it. And as you can see on the side, those are screens taken from the app. So the app itself, first of all, we provide it either on Android phones and iOS. The journey planner, which is our journey planner with our algorithms, integrates every public transport operator in the region. So the STIB-MIVB, of course, as well as the SNCB, tech, and the lean. And when it comes to private mobility service providers, we integrated station-based bike sharing schemes with Velo, free-floating bikes with Billy, e-scooters with Dot, taxis with Taxiver, and car sharing with Cambio. We'll soon integrate Lime for the scooters and Puppy for car sharing. And of course, many more, as many more will come in the region. When it comes to mobility accounts, of course, we will link the Move Brussels accounts with the MSP's accounts. For the booking and payment part, at the moment, it is through deep links. For some of them, some are deeply integrated. And the goal is to have everyone deeply integrated in the app to allow booking and payment in the app when that will be live. Why it will work? Because we're convinced that it will work. We're sure of it for some reasons. 4 reasons, mainly. The first one is that Mass has to put public transport to its core to promote intermodality. Because even if in a city such as Brussels, there is a very dense public transport network with high frequency, people still have to come to the city. They may be living in the suburbs, and in this case, they have to connect to the nearest train station, for example, or the nearest bus stop. And when they are in the city center, maybe people can't or don't want to walk. And in this case, we'll look for another mobility scheme to reach their final destination to use for their last mile on the trip. So this is why public transport has to be on the core of Mass anyway, because if you're in the suburbs, we'll connect you to the main public transport hubs. And if you're in the city center, it seems that you came here or used the public transport, and then you will use something else. Another interesting thing is that the STIB-MIVB brand is very strong in Brussels. Everyone knows the STIB. I would say everyone likes the STIB because they're providing a great service to people. They're communicating a lot, actually, sometimes in quirky ways, either on the social networks or directly the drivers in the buses tend to be pretty fun, I would say. So people like them and people trust them. And this is actually key when it comes to Mass. People have to trust the Mass solution. So this is why it's very important for this solution to be led by a strong brand that everyone trusted. And in this case, it's great that the project is led by the main transport operator in the city and supported by the Public Transport Authority, because public transport operators currently with Mass have to face new things. At the moment, they were running their buses, they were running their subways, but now they have to interact with private companies, with private mobility service providers. And this is why being supported by the Public Transport Authority is great, because this authority is legitimate to gather private mobility service providers around a whole new Mass project and negotiate with them the agreements that are needed to integrate them in a solution. And well, I would say this works well in Belgium, which is the same case as in France, for example, where there is often one main public transport operator in the city, but the situation could be different in other countries where the market is deregulated and there are a lot of different operators in the city. So the situation could be different in other regions, but in Belgium, it's great to be led by the public transport operator. And last thing is that as long as we integrate public transport at the core of mass, public transport ticketing is key too. And this is why we integrate new things when it comes to ticketing to have an experience as seamless as possible. And so people can just open the subway gates with their phones.
Okay, so I will now talk about challenges that concern, well, globally the mass, and that also challenges that we faced in this project, this specific project. So, well, challenges. Maybe the first one is that when we talk about white label mass, it's never turnkey. I will explain why. The question of coordinating the mobility service providers, that's also very complicated. I'm sorry, my phone. So question of MSPs, also the question of how to ensure that the proof of concept will be a success. So we will drive this project to a success. I will talk about that. And maybe the last one is how to integrate, and the fact how important it is to integrate our customers' technical environments to make the overall service successful service. So the first one is maybe you might think that well, putting a mass is turnkey. In fact, it's not. First of all, it's not, because each market is specific. For example, in Brussels, there are three languages. We have three languages. We have French, we have English, we have Dutch. So the application has to talk in each language, and the way you look for a point of interest has to be adapted to each language. So that's the first thing. Another thing, for example, in Brussels, that the payments, and it's in all Belgium, is highly secured and very specific, so more secure than in many countries. So we had to integrate that in the user experience. That's specific. Another thing that is maybe not so much specific to Belgium is that we need to interact with MSPs and with heterogeneous APIs. We have a lot of APIs and even a lot of different ways to integrate even in the same mean of transportation. Different e-scooters have different APIs, so we have to deal with that. It's heterogeneous, but also maybe it's not stable, maybe it's not complete, maybe we change in time. So when we do the work, we have to rebuild the thing 1 month later. So it's a complicated thing. And well, and that's well, a specific project, but you didn't miss the COVID, and the lockdown of the COVID occurred during the project. So just figure out that we developed the application that opened the gates of the metro from home, not even from the office, and that people from the STIB just couldn't go in the subway to test it. So nobody could go to the subway. So that's tricky. That's well, maybe funny during the project, but more deep is the fact that people change the way they move, and especially in Brussels, maybe the rise of bikes. It's very impressive. Maybe it's doubled in 6 months, and there are new infrastructure, and we know that the infrastructure, well, the dedicated lanes that were built during the lockdown will remain after the crisis. So people change the way they move. There are new infrastructure, and of course, a service that is dedicated to mobility and to overall mobility have to adapt itself, and that's what we did, of course. So the challenge of MSPs is tricky. Of course, MSPs will always have concern when it comes to mass. We know that because they most of them already have their own application. They invested, and they also invested in communication. So what we provide to them is a neutral platform. They know that they will be treated the same as all other means. We are neutral. We don't push or promote one mode instead of another. The only DNA of a mobile public mass is climate change concerns, is ecological things, and we integrate in our algorithm the ecological factors, of course. But concerning MSPs, they could feel disintermediate, and we have to deal with all this and to bring them more gain than what they could lose in this platform. And what they can gain, the first thing they can gain is massive flow of public transport travelers, and we need to bring smooth intermodal experience so that people can come from public transport to e-scooter, or for ride hailing to public transport to e-scooter, and that's it's seamless. So I saw, for example, that an operator of e-scooter said that nearly half, in fact 46% of all the rides were done combining e-scooters with public transport. So the synergy with all those modes are obvious, and we need to build mass on top of that. Also, mass can be a great help to operator to operate their service. If they can use mass to do more rides, to sell more rides with less vehicle, because they have put the vehicle in better places, using transportation information, using, I don't know, disruptions, maybe they can be more at the financial balance. That can be very, very important for them. That's what we try to do. And another thing is the challenge to make the proof of concept a success. First thing, we need to understand what works and what doesn't in this service. And we brought a lot of tools and a lot of things to understand that. The first is user feedback. So there are lots of inquiries, a lot of feedback that is asked in-app. So people can get their feedback all the time after a lot of experience. So we will improve, first of all, the product, and we need to be agile. So during the experiment, the product will be improved. There is also a question of business model, how people want to consume their mobility. And that questions, of course, the business model. And the last thing is the overall principle of mass. We need to understand, in fact, mobility expectations of people. Remember that mass is not a word that people know. When you go in the street, you ask if people know what is mass. Nobody knows. It's specialist word, so the concept is totally new for them. So there are a lot of education to do. Another thing, we will analyze the user's behavior. What they do in app is analyzed with sensors, lots of sensors, and we will also use a sort of marketing tool to push specific notification to people who did things, one thing or another, or series of things. We can provide very specific notification, so we can do very precise marketing. And maybe the last gain of the project is the fact that we will know what are people's expectations in terms of mobility, and if the service provided is fitting the needs or not. If we know there will be overlap, so people will choose one mobility or another one, but there also can be hole, and we need to detect those holes because it means that there is a need that is not reached. That's important thing. The last challenge is the technical environment. We need to integrate the technical environment of our customer. Our customer is STIB, is a PTO, is operating a service, is running a service, so it's equipped with a lot of systems. And if we connect to the systems, the efficiency of the mass service will be enhanced. And the first one is, of course, real-time data. So we connect to AVLS system. So we get real-time schedule. The second is ticketing. For us, ticketing is key. The way you buy tickets, the way you can buy tickets in an overall package is key. And the experience of that is key to make a very efficient mass. So we didn't have time to connect to VIX, which is the provider of ticketing system in Brussels, but we brought MTicket on top, so people can very easily buy a ticket. And we also connected to system that open gates in metro, so people can buy tickets, open gates with a simple QR code. It's very important user experience. And the last one is STIB puts their user at the core of their information system with the customer relationship management system. And we will connect to that so that we enlarge what STIB knows about their customers and how they can better serve them. That's also key in the service. So,
sure. Well, as a conclusion, I would say that even if the technology was there, we learned a lot from what we did with the STIB-MIVB, of course, and we're still learning a lot.
Yeah, and we would be happy to answer any question.
Yeah, sure.
You can have.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. I mean, it's incredible work. And I think it's also exactly the kind of project that our audience wants to see happening in key European cities like Brussels and, like you've said, in Paris as well. We do have a few questions to get through with 8 minutes or so left, so that's pretty good going. So yeah, let's jump straight in. So you've obviously referred to it already, but is the technology you're using here off the shelf or bespoke? And I suppose as part of that as well, how do you go about working with operators and authorities to be able to kind of get this kind of project off the ground?
Yeah. Well, it's important to know that the question of proof of concept and experimentation is not about experimenting the technology. Because technology, it's at the core of the technology is existing. It's running live in Paris. People use it every day. The experiment is really based on what people expect from mobility as a service, what they expect in their day-to-day mobility, and what this service can bring to them. So during this experiment, we will follow very precisely how people use it, and that's the core of the experimentation. But still, when we bring the off-the-shelf technology, there has to be specific things. If it's 6 months long, it's not live in next week. That we have to connect to system, AVLS connection, getting, as I said, but also, I don't know, MSP's connection is tricky. We have to understand how people consume all mobility. So there is still a part of the technology that is done specifically to the project. But the core of it, trip planner, the application, all the booking and paying while flow are existing, of course.
Yeah, for sure. And just touching on what you said there, how is that process in terms of being able to kind of speak to MSPs and get them connected and integrated into the service? What's that process like, and what have your experiences of it been so far working in Brussels?
Well, there is a process between STIB and us. It's a project, so it's I would like to say it's not interesting at all. It's the IT project, we connect. What's interesting is how we deal with MSPs.
Yeah.
We need to onboard them, to interest them in the project. And what we see is totally different how people behave. And it's normal because they have different interests. Taxi are very proactive. Taxi really want to be in the service. What we saw was, well, it was very, very interesting. They had the existing technology. They made it
from the start.
Evolve, and they were really on board from the beginning. But well, it's also that there are a question of I don't know, political issues. They compete also with ride-hailing platforms. So it's a way to be present in the hand, in the smartphone of people. So I think it's a great move. But when we talk about ride-hailing, their existence is not on a field. They only exist in your application. So this intermediation for such player are more tricky. And that's not the case, for example, for e-scooters. E-scooters, you walk on the street, you see the vehicle, you want to take it. So their street marketing is done with their field presence. It's related to how it works. So, well, there are also lots of legal issues. So we have to sign contracts before starting to work. And I like to say American players are very focused on legal questions. That's the fact. And maybe that's, I don't judge that. I'd like to say that when it's a public mass, the fact that there is a PTA behind that and there is public transport operator is sort of guaranteed that it's neutral, that it is fair. It's not about Amazon model. We are not wanting to disintermediate and take a fee. So it creates trust, and the trust is key in mass. We need people to trust in the service. We need MSPs to trust in the service. So the question that is provided by PTA and PTO is really key. So we saw in this project globally good energy, and it ran well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it sounds like an incredibly complex process. Would you say that it's a kind of it's obviously very, very particular as well in terms of the steps you have to take throughout? Do you think that is one of the hurdles to implementing mobility as a service kind of more broadly in some of Europe's major cities?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So just to reiterate, I was just wondering whether you think that very particular and complex process could be seen as a potential hurdle to the broad implementation of mobility as a service across Europe?
I don't think so, because anyway, mobility as a service will develop and expand. I think that we've seen that in some countries it started earlier, but at the moment, pretty much every country is launching its mass projects. So even if it's complex on the technical part, on the legal part, on the negotiation part to embed mobility service provider, I think that in the end, it won't stop people from creating mass.
It's definitely, for example, in Paris, they spend 10 billion each year for public transport. So it's a very strong investment, and that's all over the world in big city. Cities invest a lot in public transport. That means offer. Mobility as service is a question of demand. You are on the user side, and when in cities you have more and more and private MSPs, well, it's a good thing, and the mobility as service will become a way for cities to rule how mobility has to to be well, how you can use mobility as service, for example, to rule public spaces dedicated to mobility. When you spend 10 billion each year to make people avoid to use a car, if this tool can make a shift, of 1 or 2% from the individual car to public transport or to other ecological mean, that's a huge thing. When you look at a city, you have more than half of the space that is dedicated to cars, with roads and with parkings. That's way too much when you consider that's the mean that the city less and less people will use it, and even if you use it, you just use it 5% of the time. So we can definitely do better with our space than this. And I think that with more and more MSPs, that's in the end of people, that's a need to simplify their mobility, to simplify the way they consume their mobility. That's so the need for mass is too obvious, and the way it makes people evolve in the way they move, how they choose their mobility, is too important for cities, and so they will use the mass as a tool to apply sort of mobility policy, and that's what we see really everywhere in the world.
Yeah, for sure. No, yeah, I think that's absolutely right. It seems like it's win-win for any city that wants to try and adopt mobility as a service. I think that really comes across when we speak to people like you and see your passion for the projects that you're involved in. So that's great. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for now. But Jan, Alexander, thank you very much indeed for your contributions. Obviously, just to stay tuned for the next session in a few minutes' time, where we're talking next-gen ticketing and payments with a panel of really excellent speakers from across Europe and North America. So we will see you on the next one. And guys, thank you very much again. Cheers.
Bye. Thank you.